Julia, October 17th set as the date, but you could say the campaigning's already long begun.
Yeah, both sides have been back out on the campaign trail just since this announcement on Friday. And that's despite the fact that there's been no ground rules laid out. We really don't have a clear sense from the Supreme Court or from the Electoral Commission, who announced the date today, what the way forward is in terms of the logistics of this election or the campaign. But both candidates have been out and about, making sure that everybody knows that they are confident that they can win. President Kenyatta has been out not only campaigning, but striking out against the Supreme Court decision. He called the justices on the Supreme Court crooks and said that just 4 people have overridden the will of the entire nation. So there's heated rhetoric on both sides. Of course, opposition candidate Odinga has been on the campaign trail. He is striking out against this Electoral Commission, who will conduct this rerun election.
They're going to conduct it. Earlier this Monday, Kenyatta's government announcing it was refusing to replace the Electoral Board. You mentioned Odinga calling for criminal charges against said board. What is going to be the climate as we head towards this redo, if you will, of the presidential election?
Well, people here are certainly nervous that some of the tension going into this last election will heat up considerably going into now this second election. People were very relieved on both sides that Kenya managed to avoid the post-electoral violence that has plagued previous elections here with this last election. So obviously now, with both candidates striking out against the country's institutions, against this electoral board, against the Supreme Court itself, striking out against some of the Western observers and Western diplomats who were involved in the last election. Obviously, there are factors on many different sides that are adding to the tension around this. So there's certainly a feeling that the sooner these elections happen, the better, that people can just get back to normal, go back to school, and that the economy will stabilize. And of course, the sooner we hear from the Supreme Court about the specifics of how this election will be conducted and the specifics of their decision last Friday, people will be relieved to have more facts around that.
Yeah, just very briefly, Julia, that decision is expected on September 21st. If we look at the timeline, leading up to that October 17th poll, could that sow fresh confusion over the organization of the presidential election?
It definitely could. I spoke to the Electoral Commission myself today, and they said that even they are waiting to hear from the Supreme Court. They've had no real back channel privately to hear how they're expected to move forward. The head of that commission has said that he is open to a staff reshuffle. He is open to firing staff members and even to cooperating with the prosecution of certain staff members. But even the commission themselves have not heard exactly about how they are supposed to reorganize and regroup in order to hold a credible election by October 17th.
Julia Steers.